Alright, we are back with another video, and I'm really starting to get used to the Strand Titan, so I figured I'd show you all how I'm using it, and I'm calling this the Devastator. Expect this to evolve over time as we get access to new aspects and fragments, but anyway, to start off, let's go over some keywords. And if you already know the basic Strand verbs, just skip to the next section, it's no worries. But our first keyword is tangle. These are the green orbs that spawn in occasionally. We have a few ways that we can spawn these in, but for now, let's just go over what they do. They're essentially strand detonations that we can either shoot or throw to do an AoE blast. These are a centerpiece of this build, so we will need to use them and interact with them. Next, unraveling, and more specifically, unraveling rounds. The strand specific 8-second weapon buff, which is kind of similar to the jolt effect that Arc has. While active, unraveling rounds will turn any strand weapon you have into a mini outbreak prime, basically, except you don't even need kills to proc it. When you shoot unraveling rounds at an enemy, they will become unraveled, which means that as they take damage from strand weapons, small projectiles will leave their body and start seeking out other targets, doing damage. Unraveling rounds will also stun barrier champions, so now we have a way to deal with one champion type. Our next keyword is woven mail. This is our protective layer of strand matter that gives us a 60% damage reduction on top of whatever our resilience stat is. With this build, we can activate this extremely easily, but again, we'll show how we do everything in just a minute. Our final keyword here is suspend. This does exactly what it sounds like. It suspends enemies, rendering them basically useless and are wide open for damage. Suspend will also automatically stun unstoppable champions, so now we've got two champion types covered just within the Strand subclass itself. And on Strand Titan, it is very easy to suspend enemies. So with the foundational aspects of the build out of the way, let's go over how we can set up the subclass. Choose whatever jump you want, but make sure to have your rally barricade equipped due to its shorter cooldown time. We want to use this as often as possible. Frenzied Blade is our only melee option, so choose that. And as for the grenade, make sure to use the Shackle Grenade. It is definitely the strongest grenade choice here. And as of right now, only 2 aspects are available, but more will be made available over the course of the year. Into the fray, our first aspect will grant woven mail when we destroy a tangle. Pretty simple. I know it says for allies only here, but as long as you're within about 5 meters of the tangle, you'll get woven mail. I don't know why it doesn't say that. It also says that while woven mail is active, we'll get increased melee recharge, which is really nice. The next aspect is called Dranger's Lash, which will upgrade our barricade to where every time we cast it, it will launch out a strand missile that will suspend any enemy it comes in contact with. And yes, that on top of the Shackle Grenade will be the main ways we'll be dealing with unstoppable champions. As for the fragments, there's still so much to test out, but I really do like the way this setup works right now. Thread of Mind will generate class ability energy when we defeat suspended enemies, which will be very often, meaning that we'll have a rally barricade up pretty much constantly. Thread of Propagation will grant unraveling rounds to strand weapons by just getting a powered melee kill, making it incredibly easy to significantly buff strand weapons in our loadout. And we'll stay alive very easily by using Thread of Warding, which will give us 10 seconds of woven mail when picking up orbs of power. In my opinion, this is a non-negotiable fragment. You should always have this on your Titan. Woven mail will only be active for a maximum of 10 seconds, but you can always just pick up another orb to instantly max it out again. And finally, Thread of Fury will return melee energy when defeating enemies with a tangle. The more enemies you damage, the more melee energy you get back. Okay, so I know there's a lot of explaining, but we're almost there. For this section, we'll cover stat distribution first. I'd suggest going with 100 resilience, and because this is so melee heavy, I went with 100 strength as well. This is a lot different than how we normally think, because discipline is typically what we go for first with our grenades, because grenades are usually really good. But for this build, I think the melee capabilities are very strong and give us a lot back when we get kills with the Frenzied Blade, so I went all in on strength. As for the mods, for helmet, I went with double hands-on here so I could get as much super energy return as possible for getting melee kills. I also went with Harmonic Siphon, which will generate an orb of power on strand weapon multi-kills, so you definitely want at least 1 strand weapon here, preferably 2 if possible, and I have a few recommendations for you in just a bit on which weapons you should choose. For the gloves, I went with heavy-handed to get even more bonus from the Frenzy Blade melee. Getting kills with it will generate an orb of power. Doubling up on it will increase the potency of that orb, giving more super energy. And I decided to go with a Strand weapon loader here, but pick something else if you want it. I just like having a quicker reload speed, and it only cost 1 energy. For chest, I went with 1 stacks on stacks, which will give us an additional armor charge max, so now we can max out at 4 armor charge. Strand reserves or harmonic reserves if you don't have that artifact perk unlocked, and 1 resist mod of your choice. Just swap this to whatever the threat is in the activity that you're running, if there happens to be one. For boots, I went with triple Strand surge. Yeah, I did it. If you don't have the Strand authorized mod unlocked from the artifact, go with 2 here and then use the invigoration mod, which will give you more melee energy when you pick up an orb of power. And finally, for the class item, I used 1 outreach mod for getting just a little bit of melee energy back when using a grenade, utility kickstart for returning some barricade energy when using our barricade, and time dilation to extend the armor charge duration from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. This is a significant amount of extra time, especially when you have 4 stacks of armor charge. That's 1 minute instead of 45 seconds, so pretty big deal. For the exotic, we have the brand new Abeyant Leap leg armor. This upgrades our already upgraded barricade to launch 3 Strand missiles out, which suspends even more enemies. Seriously, anything in front of you will be suspended, making it very easy to find cover if you want, or go on the offensive and reap the benefits of killing a suspended enemy. The benefits being that we get a portion of our class ability back and a free tangle on suspended kills. Keep in mind that there is a cooldown on how many tangles you can spawn in. You can only spawn in 1 while the debuff timer is active. You will see that on your screen. So what we've discussed so far hasn't necessarily required the artifact, and the build is already very good, but we can make it even better by taking advantage of the perks that are available in the artifact. And if you didn't know, you no longer have to apply these as mods. You can just pick any 12 perks here that you want, and they count as a passive perk that works for you 100% of the time. The main ones you'll want for this build are Overload Auto SMG, which will cover Overload champions, meaning that we'll have full coverage on every champion type now in one build. Also pick up Authorized Mods Strand, which reduces all Strand mods to only 1 energy. Grab Untangler that will suspend any enemies that are damaged by a tangle that is destroyed by a Strand weapon, which will be all the time. Allied Unraveling will overcharge your Strand weapons by giving them Unraveling rounds by getting multi-kills with them, giving us a second way to activate Unraveling rounds. It's seriously just a free buff to your Strand weapons, and it's very strong. And finally, Threaded Blast will increase the blast radius of the tangles when they are destroyed with the Strand weapon. So if you haven't realized already, you really want to be destroying tangles with your Strand weapons. Try not to throw them if possible, you'll just be losing out on a lot of good stuff. Okay, our final section before we put this all together. Let's get our weapons in order. I'd highly recommend using the Quicksilver Storm if you have it, but don't worry if you don't, it's just really good if you do have it. When you get the Catalyst, the grenade charges will turn into tangles if you get kills with them, giving you an even easier way to spawn in those tangles. I really like Quicksilver Storm, and I think it's going to be a main weapon in my loadout for any Strand builds this year. Another phenomenal second choice that everyone has access to is the Synchronic Roulette SMG, which can get the Hatchling trait on it. Hatchling will spawn in Threadlings when you just get precision kills. Yeah, it's pretty cool. This is what I'm going for pretty much every Strand weapon. And the good news is both of these weapons mentioned so far will deal with Overload champions as long as you have the Overload Auto and SMG from the artifact. And as for your heavy weapon, there aren't too many choices in the game right now, but you can go with a Circular Logic LMG if you want to. And if you really just don't want to use a Strand heavy weapon, that's totally fine. Just make sure you've got one in your kinetic slot to take advantage of all those benefits. All right, let's put everything into practice. We've got a few gameplay rhythms that we can get into here. Seriously, there's really no wrong way you can do this. One of the ways that I like to initiate this gameplay loop is to get some multi-kills with Strand weapons that will give me Unraveling rounds, which will make clearing ads a walk in the park. Those unraveled enemy kills will then generate a tangle, which you can shoot and destroy to create a large Strand explosion, suspending anyone that it doesn't kill and giving you both Woven Mail and melee energy just by shooting a tangle. Killing any suspended enemies will give you class ability energy as well, and if an unstoppable champion happens to be hanging around there, it will instantly get stunned. Multi-kills with your Strand weapons will also create orbs of power, and orbs will give us tons of benefits. We'll basically get some super energy back. We also get woven mail and armor charge, which gives us a 22% bonus to Strand weapon damage, which will be extended with the time dilation buff. You can also initiate all of this by just popping your barricade to suspend tons of enemies, or use your shackle grenade to do the same thing, or you can simply get one melee kill to activate unraveling rounds so you can do the entire loop all over again, which will also grant you an orb of power too. So just so many ways to do this. You almost always have some cooldown ready to go here once you get the hang of it, and there are so many ways that everything just works together. Like mentioned, it's very satisfying. I know this was a long build video, but I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm still learning Strand, so I'm sure some better builds will come out at some point. Well, I am off to start my Warlock now. I'm officially done with the Titan for this week. I hope you all have been having a great time with Lightfall, and if you have any more questions, just join the Discord. I can't wait to make more videos on Lightfall. There's a lot to do, so I will see you all in the next video.